welcome to Writer. I'm your host, Kat Filer, also known as KJ Filer, and my guest today is Mark Wallace Maguire. He's a Kindle best-selling author of 8 books of fiction and nonfiction, including the highly praised Alexandria Rising Trilogy, an action and adventure suspense thriller. Available in print and Kindle, the series is also available on Audible, and I do highly recommend the Audible. I'm listening to it now. Mark is an Independent Author of the Year finalist and a Georgia Author of the Year nominee. He spent almost 20 years in Metro Atlanta's competitive media scene, where he was honored with more than 20 awards by his peers for his work in journalism. He also works in videography and design. Hi, how you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing fantastic. Sorry, I'm a little sweaty. It's the South is terrible this time of
Oh
year.
my God. Yeah, we were just talking about that. I go outside and I, the other day I actually pulled out my parasol from living in Phoenix, and it works. You have to create your own shade.
Oh
Now
my
I
God.
now I need a parasol with a fan.
That's so high fashion and so dandy. It matches with
Is
your
it?
background. I can just see you with it.
It's got little flowers on it.
Oh yeah.
It's really cute. Anyway, so to listeners who have not yet discovered your books, let me set the stage for Alexandria Rising. This is from book 1. Rand O'Neill is an ambitionless journalist and is given a single task upon the death of his grandfather: destroy a mysterious map. What should be a simple errand thrusts Rand into a journey across 3 countries where he discovers humanity's biggest secret. Join Rand on this thrilling ride as he navigates through the dark corridors of hidden history and discovers the truth about his family. That sounds interesting. Can you
I hope so.
tell us about that?
Yes. The pardon me. Like I said, the humidity. I must have swallowed a mosquito. Yeah, so the book it's drawn comparisons to some Robert Ludlum with some of the action, and then just got to be obvious here, obviously some Dan Brown, which the conspiracy fiction, the shadowy thriller, organization behind the organization.
Yeah.
And yes, that's kind of the best way to lay it out for folks. It obviously I have lots of influences, but it's a fun book, and I say that not in an easy way. I don't say that like, hey, let's just go have a lot of fun. But I didn't write it for a high literary genre, which I love, by the way. I'm a Shakespeare fan and I love T.S. Eliot, but this was written, I wanted to write a book that I would want to read.
Yeah.
And I had fun writing this. And it has its anchors in reality. It was a lot of work and research, but just to let readers know, if you're looking for a quick burner on 2 or 3 days, this is your cup of tea.
It's very interesting to listen to, and I do have the Kindle version, but I have to tell you that I listened to the sample of the Audible, and it's a nice listen. I like Audible anyway. I like audiobooks because you can put them on and get something done. You're still and I'm sure you're like me too. I do an awful lot in the writing community, so recreational reading isn't my time for that is in short supply. So if I can plug myself in and just walk around, I'm fine. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It was the narrator, Thomas Cassidy. He just did such a fantastic job with the trilogy, and I was so fortunate to work with someone so talented. And yes, he's amazing. When I first met him, I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to work with this guy. He's probably out of my league, but he's world class.
He's got a really nice voice, and he really does the characters well too. So
it blew me away. I like to joke around with accents, and I like to carry a theme or the quote speaking voice of a character with a cadence in your head as you write.
Yeah.
But for him to consistently keep those accents and cadences over a 300 and something page book, it's an art,
yeah,
beyond.
That's quite well done. So you've written several other works of fiction, including The Pursuit of the Pale Prince, which I have, and The Last Wizard. Can you tell us about those?
Yes. So after I finished the Alexandria Rising um, Chronicles, I wanted to shift gears. It wasn't really a conscious thought. I had started on a prequel, The Codebreaker's Tale, which came out about a year and a half ago. But my mind was going somewhere else. And one thing at a lot of the readings or signings, one issue I had was people would come and say, "Hi, can I get this for my 12-year-old?" Or "Hi," because I have children, they're teenagers now, but this was, 5, 6 years ago. "Hi, I'd love to buy this for my daughter." And I would say, "No, no, 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 no." I mean, it's not like gratuitous violence and sex, but it's a grown-up book. Nothing
Yeah.
worse than you'll see on Netflix or Amazon, I promise. Um, but so I've always loved young adult fantasy, and long answer here, but so it just kind of came about naturally. I started writing about a boy, but whereas Alexandria Rising and my other works are from a limited omniscient third person point of view, I started writing in the first person. And it happened. It was during an interesting time in my life. And I slowly segued into that. The first book doesn't have any magic in it. They talk about how there used to be magic.
Okay.
The second book has some magic in it. But I was very tentative to go into that realm. But that was a huge shift, and I found it very freeing, very different. And but I've really got to add some layers of psychology because the book's being told through a 12-year-old orphan's eyes.
Yeah.
And even, wherever that character is, if they're in Victorian London or, Atlanta 2020, they're going to see the world differently than we do. And those first times you see hypocrisy and, betrayal, it really hurts you when you're that age. So,
Yeah. I not only the emotion and stuff, which you do very well, but also the descriptions of things. You really stayed in character. It's difficult to write from a different age than you are. I think sometimes you have to go back and remember what it was like to be that. So yeah, but you did a real good job on
well, thank
that.
you.
So can you tell us a little bit, without spoilers, can you give us a little taste of the Pursuit of the Pale Prince and the Last Wizard? Like, can you tell us who they are and what's going on?
Yes. So yeah, as I mentioned, it's written from a first person point of view. So the story unfolds as the character discovers things. He doesn't know that there's an ocean here named that, or a range
Okay.
of mountains here named this. So it's really cool. You're getting to see it through his eyes. But he's 12 summers old. That was one of those things that, not to get too wonky, but I was like, well, we can't say years because they're going by the calendar, created by the Romans. But yeah, so it's a 12-year-old boy named Orestes. His mother and father just died from a fever, and he's given a crown by his father to deliver away from him. And then as things go on, we begin, and him being his dead father, his grave, that area of the world. As the story moves on, he begins to come into contact with other characters and situations that start to reveal what he should do with the crown.
Okay.
So, in The Pale Prince, and this is where the title comes in, this is the torque of the story, is the Pale Prince needs a symbol to unite his kingdom. There's been drought, they haven't had a strong king, they think he's weak, he's pale, so he's not some big, robust man, you know. They don't like the taxes, et cetera, et cetera. And they're about to get invaded. And he's trying to rally his people. And Orestes has been told by a friend he meets, and these really no spoilers, named Siren, that he needs to take the crown to the Pale Prince. That's where it came from. That's where it belongs. But can they reach him in time? They're on the eve of invasion. And then you also have, and I just add this as a caveat, you also have a little bit of cynicism in the boy, the character, because he's thinking, and he voices this throughout the book where he goes, can a crown really unite a kingdom? What is it, magic? And no, but symbols are more powerful than you realize, young Orestes.
Hmm.
which I think is still with us today in this world, that sentiment. So there's a whole tension. Can they reach him in time? If they do get him the crown in time, will it really unite his kingdoms? And then what's this young man to do if he fulfills this quest? It's a type of quest book, but what's to become of him?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope that wasn't too long-winded.
No, it's not. And people that are listening are interested. If they have already read the book, they're real interested in who you are. And if they haven't read the book, they're looking for a book. So they've discovered you in one of your other works.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, one of the worst things you can do is get a writer alone with a microphone.
Oh no, this is good. This is what we're all about, really. And as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and tell you, I meant to tell you off camera, but I have a list of my wish list of people that I would like to interview. And then there have been these, I don't even know who these people are or how they're finding my author email, because they're not talking to me about my own work, but they're sending me requests. Can you get this person on? And you're on the wish list. So
Oh my
the
gosh.
fan wish list.
I appreciate that.
So I'm working through the fan wish list, and which I keep thinking, well, I'll get to, and a lot of my wish list is on there, but then I keep thinking, okay, now, and then I get, something else and something else. That is never going to end. That list just keeps going on and on.
That's a wonderful challenge to have.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very excited. And they send in questions too. So it's very helpful. It makes it really easy to produce a show if somebody's telling you what to say.
Yes, definitely.
So that's great. You also have some nonfiction work. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So the first book I published I was in newspaper and magazine work for almost 20 years. And I had a column that ran in our magazine group for, golly, I can't remember, 5, 6, 7 years. I can't believe I just said golly on camera. Good Lord, I've been back in the South for too long. But so anyway, many years. It was a while ago. I have the right to not remember that perfectly. But I was very successful in that part of my career. And I'm not backdoor bragging or anything, but I won some awards and people loved the column. I tried to, it was never political. It was never social. It was for a lifestyle magazine. So it was more commentary. I had some humor. I talked about fatherhood. I talked about my faith, and things of that nature. So I put those into a volume called Letters from Red Clay Country. We live south of Atlanta, roughly half an hour from the airport, and we adopted the title Red Clay Country from, the environment and just the kind of vibe quote down here. So that was Letters from Red Clay Country. It's just a selection of my favorite columns.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good. Go.
Yeah, it was fun. And my uncle really prodded me to do that. And it's good. It was a great toehold. And then my youngest son has special needs. He has a chromosome deletion. It's called Cru de Chat, and it's a deletion of the 5th chromosome. So he's 16 now, but when he was born, I was floored by the lack of resources for parents of children who have special needs. And I mean, this is, going into the Borders bookstore when he's 3 weeks old. And I'm like, I need a help guide. I don't know what to do. I thought I knew everything. Now I know that I know nothing. I mean, help, help, help. And it's just a huge vacuum. And so, it's the whole thing of somebody's got to do it. Why not me? Mentality. And, your frustration is also your passion, that kind of the dual sides of the coin. So I started a anonymous blog. I think it was about 7 years ago as well. I'm just going to make everything 7, right? It's a holy number.
7 is a good number. Yeah.
That's right. And the response I got from that blog blew me away. And I had Facebook as the social media presence, but it was anonymous. I didn't want to share that pain with the world. But I was getting emails. I mean, I still have folks I hear from every now and then, dads in Canada. And a woman emailed me from Ireland to get a copy for her husband. And a good buddy of mine in Minnesota, his daughter recently passed. So long story short, that went on for 3 years or so, and I said, there's a real need out there, and I'm seeing it. It's not just theory, and it's not just my world, but empirically. So I compiled my blogs into a book, and then my wife also has a part in there, which she wrote probably about a fifth of it from her perspective, and it's called Confessions of a Special Needs Dad, and it addresses the issues that fathers face and parents face. Men face it differently than women do, and one of the issues that men have, you can tell I'm passionate about this, but we tend to, by nature, we withhold more. We don't want to show weakness. We have a hard time communicating. And then imagine if you have a special needs child, it's doubly as hard, because you're like, no one can understand,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to bathe my son when we're done with this tonight. So, you aren't going to be bringing that up sitting around the pool table watching the Georgia game. But yeah, I published that, and I'm still involved in that community. I'm leading a panel here down in Peachtree City in September for fathers. So that was very different. And the whole thing was, I did it anonymously and then quasi-anonymously. The fear, you don't want people to sometimes see that. It's a nice wall to hide behind. But now, at this point, I think it's more of a ministry, without sounding too high and mighty, but it's a way for me to help and to show my vulnerability and to show where people have helped me.
Yep. And for listeners, the title is Confessions of a Special Needs Dad, Honesty and Hope for the Journey. And reviewers have called it beautiful, authentic, and full of love. So yeah, I think it's quite the thing for you to go ahead and share with that. Like you, other people are looking around and saying, I need somebody else to talk to me about this. What do I do?
Yes.
So,
resources have grown exponentially, but there's still a big vacuum. And I know this sounds terrible and cynical, but the bottom line is, it's not a huge money market. So, your quote investments, financially and from a passion standpoint, are going to come from individuals in the nonprofit world. And candidly, we just don't wield the resources that the big folks have.
Yeah. No, and in all of the situations that are a little bit atypical, you think that there's somebody out there that you can talk to. There isn't always. I have had cancer twice, and my attitude was very similar to what why me? And actually, if you look at my family, why not me? I don't even know why I'm alive now. I shouldn't be. Okay. But then I looked around for other people to talk to, and nobody wants to talk about that. If they haven't had it, they don't want to talk about it. If they have had it, they don't want to talk about it. If they're going through it, they sure as heck don't want to talk about it. So yeah. So I've never written a book. There's no real need. Susan Komen beat me there. But yeah. So
Well, it's so important. I mean, there's one of the things when I was working on that blog and compiling that book, I'm a big fan of Frederick Buechner, the pastor and author. And he writes a lot about, him and Henri Nouwen both write a lot about the wounded healer, and the Bible's full of them. I mean, the people that God used a lot of them they're a bunch of losers, man. I mean, they're always doubting, they're whining, and like we are, like I am, So I had to check my ego and think, Maguire, if the one has used these people, do you think you're too good not to be used or not good enough? So, point is, in context to what you were saying, I think people need to share their pain and be good stewards of it.
I agree. Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, and I know some people have talked to me about, it's brave to talk about. It's not brave. It's if anything, if I ever talk to somebody, and you can bet that all of my female friends who ever come down with breast cancer have come to me, and then they wanted some wisdom. I don't have any wisdom, but what I do have is a phone, and you can call me at 3 a.m. Okay. And just tell me this sucks, because it does. So,
right.
It's compassion that people are looking for mostly.
Right.
That's what you're talking about in your book. It's like it's confessions of, It's not
Yeah,
this is how you do it.
right, exactly. I'm still
Okay.
waiting for that book.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go.
I always get, I'm not against self-help books by any means. And I read a lot of philosophy and theology, and for quote self-help reasons. You're looking for enlightenment, you're looking for why, you're looking for coping skills. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all bundled together. But yeah, sometimes some of these books, how I beat depression in 10 days,
Yeah.
or how to be a super mom in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, come on now,
Yeah.
you know, let's not kid each other here.
Yeah.
But you probably got a seller out of it, so good for you. But
Well, and my personal favorite is, you can manifest what you want. Okay, thanks.
right,
Thanks for that. That's the best thing I ever heard. It's my own
right,
fault.
yeah, we're all magicians now, right?
There you go. Okay, thank you for that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I asked for it. Anyway, so Mark, a producer calls you and he wants to make one of your novels into a movie. Which one and why?
Wow. There's a part of me that wow. I think about the Arestus adventures, but I think I'd have to go with Alexandria Rising. And it's very visual, it's visceral. When I worked with the audio book narrator Thomas Cassidy, he discussed that some with me. He said, I want you to think of this, your characters. Like, I need a visual in my head. And and that helped me because I already had it down, but then I had to come up with comparisons, and that's a fun little game to play.
It is.
But yeah, we can daydream all day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Alexandria Rising, and I want it shot by Guy Ritchie or Antoine Fuqua, and I'm a cinephile, so I've already let's bring in Hans Zimmer for the music. Let's
Okay, there you go. Oh, that would be good.
right, let's swing for the fences. So, but yes, I would love to have that challenge.
Do you have any particular people in mind for your characters to play them?
Yeah, I think I could do that. Like I said, never get a writer in front of a microphone.
Okay.
We're talking about our books. I would say Rand O'Neal.
Okay.
I had him penciled in. Do you remember the TV show Lost?
Oh yeah.
There was the character Sawyer, played by Josh Holloway.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
kind of like him at that age, but with a little bit of Matthew McConaughey in there. So they're definitely Southern.
Yeah.
And Holloway's a bit of he plays a very good smart aleck, but McConaughey, he can polish it up a bit.
Yeah.
So one of those guys for the great villain Kent St. James. You need somebody who's so erudite and is just going to be so snobby. So I'd love to have like a younger I don't know, I would say Anthony Hopkins, but you could have
Ooh.
Daniel Craig.
Oh
I mean, because he's wonderful, but he can be chilling.
yeah.
You could have boy, now my mind goes blank. You could even have somebody like, I don't want to say Denzel because it's an English character and I'd like to keep that, but maybe someone like Idris Elba,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
who's just that, who can deliver that straight dead level, condescension.
Yeah.
Even Tom Hiddleston, he's gotten a lot of, see, like I said, don't do this. He's gotten so much, play and visibility with his Loki work, but I love his work in The Night Manager.
Oh
The
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
beautiful adaptation of Le Carre's book, and he was fantastic in that. And then the gentleman who played the baddie, and that, as Mark Corrigan would say, I believe it was Hugh Laurie. I'm not great.
It might have been Hugh.
Was he in House?
Yes. And
So like he has that derision.
is it weird to hear him speak American? It's or is it weird to hear him as a Brit? But yeah, he's very versatile. So yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that.
You're gonna be like, we're gonna be here for the next 2 hours listening to this guy just rant and daydream, and then he's gonna put his arms behind him. He's gonna talk about butterflies, but I could definitely see it.
Yeah. I think you're right on that one. So, what do you think sets writers apart from other artists?
Wow. I think one of the major things is it's the loneliest of arts.
It's pretty lonely.
Yes. Thank you. And I don't say that out of pity,
No,
but painters can paint with one another. They can go to gallery shows. Musicians, you can find someone to play with or find a band or whatnot. Dance, obviously,
yeah,
you're integrated with other people or another piece of art like music you're feeding off of.
yeah.
But writing, it's usually you and your laptop somewhere, and then you create this whole world in your head, and it's that's why something like this, what we're doing right here, it's so refreshing and so much fun because my wife, I quit telling her about my books a few years ago.
Yeah, I hear you.
I love her too much to keep enduring her with tales.
No, and here's the thing too, nobody can crawl into your head. Even when you go to critique groups or if you have beta readers or whatever, and I will tell you that I no longer send my work off to beta readers who are also authors because they have a whole nother book in mind. Okay. They're very good at writing a story, but then they're not always on board with whatever you're doing. But yeah, I've stopped talking to my husband too. He is not a reader. Well, he is reading some friend of yours, and I'm going to say this out loud. Damon, how do you say Damon's last name?
Oh yeah,
Poirier? Okay. So I've never
very
had any
sophisticated.
reason to say it, but anyway, Rick met him at Carrollton,
Yeah.
I bought his book. He said buy it for me. And so I bought it. And so now Rick has that book and I haven't gotten to read it because Rick won't let me have it because it's signed and he likes it.
It's fantastic. He is probably my favorite short fiction writer now in America.
Well, he's got Rick reading fiction. But anyway, back to us talking about our own work. I can't talk to him. I'll read something to him or hand him something to read. If I hand him something to read, he marks it up for
Oh
like
God.
misspellings or punctuation. Okay. And at first, and now he gets it now. But in the very beginning, I was alone. We had moved out to Phoenix and there were no people. We were trying to make friends. I didn't have a group. And I was trying to show it to him and he would go, I don't know, sounds good.
Right. Right. That's the worst thing you can hear, right? Like tell
Yeah,
me it's amazing or this needs a lot of work.
right.
And
Right.
my wife, I will give her credit. She's a great closer. And when I need female dialogue, I'll have her look at it. So because I'm aware that it's quote decent or good as I think I am with character development, I don't have that world sewn up.
Well,
I can't. I need a quote. I need a woman to help me. So I don't
okay.
want something that sound like a horse's tail.
Well, it's the rare author who can sit down and write across um, like that. I was recently talking to, well, actually, I've interviewed two male authors who write from a female perspective, and
Wow.
it's off camera. We had a real interesting conversation that I should have migrated into on camera, but I really did wonder how because I had read the books before I knew that they were male authors, and I absolutely believed that they were women. So it was a really odd thing. I could never write a male character. I don't have the ability to think that way. So yeah,
I might have to try it one day, but on my bucket list of things I want to write, it's probably not in the top five.
yeah. So
So, and all praise to those who can. I'm just sitting here thinking while you're saying, I'm like, oh man, I don't know. But that might, if I make it, and I'm really bored sometime, I might try that as a challenge. But
yeah. Well, and then writing from a different age too. That I think is maybe possibly a little easier because I've been 15. I've never been a
um,
guy.
that's yeah. C.S. Lewis. I can't remember the exact quote, and I'm ashamed of it because I consider myself a Lewisian. But somebody once said, what are you doing writing children's books? You're a grown man. This is a terrible paraphrase. So you C.S. Lewis fans, don't beat me up. They are known to do that. I've gotten attacked a few times. But he said, I am a grown man, but I wasn't, I was once a child. And when I was a child, I loved Christmas.
Yeah.
It was that sentiment.
Yeah.
Uh, but the same, as we were saying, yes, I was a 12-year-old boy, and I do remember seeing those first betrayals and hypocrisy, and it just kills you.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier than trying to switch gender.
Yeah. No, I like, and I did see that in your book. It's for kids. Um, it's like finding, it's not just this, but it's this little thing that we told the kids forever about Santa Claus, and now you have to come clean with them. Or
Right.
they find out from some other kid and they come home and now you have to, what, okay, do you keep the lie up or do you
Right.
admit to them? And then some kids, I had both of my kids took that particular situation very differently and very intensely. Our son was like, yeah, well, I knew that. And our daughter was, no, no.
Oh, wow.
So much so that my neighbor, God bless her, she's long gone, but she dressed up as Santa and ran across our back lawn yelling ho 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 in the middle of the night.
What a saint. That is awesome.
She was wonderful. She fell and then had to crawl it along to the side of the house, and she was, oh, I don't, she was 75 at the time. And our daughter was yelling, there's Santa there, he's right out there. And then I knew she was going to do it. So then after the kids went to bed, somebody knocked on the door and I knew what that was about. And I said to the kids, Santa is out front. And my daughter's like, our son is like, no, he's not. And our daughter is, yes, he is. And she runs to the doors, opens it up, and she had left 2 little presents from Santa and a note that said, go to bed so I can leave the rest.
Oh
So
my
it
God.
was so cute.
Are you working on that for a short story?
I haven't worked on it, but she would be a wonderful character. You meet these people that are real life stories walking around, and she
Yeah.
was one of them. Yeah, she wore every piece of jewelry she ever bought in her life, all at the same time, everywhere.
So I guess you could hear her before you saw
You
her?
could hear her coming. She had bangles halfway up both arms. She looked like, I don't know. She was a wonderful person, but if she went to the beach, she had on jewelry, and if she was going to dinner, she had on jewelry. Same jewelry.
Well, I think we've got the first line. You could hear her coming, period. There's the first line. There's your O. Henry start.
Maybe. She was really great. So as a reader, do you have a favorite genre?
Wow. I like to read all over the place. I probably don't read enough cookbooks or medical journals or hard science as I should, but I enjoy action adventure, and I love Southern literature. I love American literature. And I mean, I would say those are probably my favorites. I love, Irish literature and, a lot of English literature. And I love history. I
Yeah.
just finished Masters of the Air, an exhaustive, I think it was like 1,200 pages on the 8th Air Force. And the writer, and I can't remember his name now, but boy, what an exhaustive job that was. Just tremendously well done. I believe someone said, it's not the books you read, it's the books you read again and again.
Yeah.
So if I look at that as my quote favorites, I think it would be Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Pat Conroy, Farrell Sams, Flannery O'Connor.
Yeah.
Those are all part of the pantheon.
And I think one of the really cool things about loving books and loving to read is then you have kids and you get to share it with them.
Yes.
And my son, he was reading, and he was the kind of kid you could take to church and he could sit in church with you and read a book.
Yes.
Our daughter was aggressively mobile at 2, and she never stopped making noise. She still hasn't stopped making noise. God love her. So, but she was hard to get to read. But once she did start reading, she blew her English professors away at college. They were like, I forget what she was reading. And somebody walked in and said, you're reading that for what class? And she said, just reading it. And he said, that's recreational reading for you.
Wow.
So
It's the
yeah,
best education you can get. Shameless plug here, but I'm part of a group called Children's Literature for Children, founded by my friend Kami Nix many years ago. But her philosophy is if a child can learn to read a book, they can do anything in a
yes,
nutshell. Through self-education. We have libraries around the globe, and she's had over 2 million books donated, and But it's really, I mean, you're in her ideas, there can be a child in Kenya and the sanitation may not be good and the government infrastructure may be bad, but you give that child a book and they can change the world.
Absolutely, for
And I
sure.
believe that recreational as well as academic, any reading, it exercises the muscle.
It does. It takes you out of your own world and into someplace else. And it doesn't necessarily take you out of your community. You could be reading things about your community, but
Right.
you're still a different person, and it's not your life, and it's a different, existence. So I think it's a big deal. And I
Oh, yeah.
really love to see kids reading early like that. So that's great.
Yes.
Good for her.
It's my favorite legal drug.
Yes, I never thought about it that way. But
I'm sorry, that came out the wrong way.
no, I understand what you're saying. At first, my husband, when we were first together, he would see me reading a book that I had read before, and he'd say, "I thought you read that." Yeah, I did. And he's finally one day he said, "Okay, so what's the deal with reading books that you've read before?" And I said, "Because my friends live in there, and the only way I can visit them is to go there."
Wow, that is exactly. I've never heard it phrased that way. I love it.
Yeah. So that's
Uh, Go ahead. My
no,
apologies.
I have my favorites too that I reread from time to time. So yeah.
Yeah, I've always used the quote from Goodwill Hunting. When he says, "All your best friends are dead." When he goes, "I've got friends. I have authors. And I've got Ruskin. I've got so." And he goes, "Will, all your best friends are dead." Um,
Yes.
I love that little jab, but the way you just described it is my best friends live in those books, and that's how I visit them.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
Thanks. So you have something called synthesia? How do you
Yes,
say it?
I
And
believe
how
synesthesia
does
or synesthesia, and I'm not a one of those people, so don't beat me up,
okay.
America.
Okay. So how does that affect the way you describe characters and visualize landscapes?
Yes, great question. So I reckon I've always had this, and it's where you associate colors with sounds or sounds with colors and smells with colors. It goes across, different people have it different ways. It's not a disability. I don't even want to call it a quote ability because that sounds snooty. But I've always had it, but I didn't know what it was till probably about 4 years ago. A friend of mine, shout out to Danielle, she had something similar but with numbers.
Okay.
And she was telling me about this one day, like 3 is this color and 7 is this color. And she had amazing like photographic memory with numbers. So I started looking into it and saw how it also correlated across the other senses. So that really, it definitely does work with my writing. And I didn't recognize it until after I delved into this whole, I don't know, sub psychology world or whatnot. But, cold is always gray. And
Yeah.
that's pretty obvious, but then also sunlight, there's a difference between winter sunlight and summer sunlight. One's golden, one's pale. Okay, that's a little obvious. I get it. But it really, I think for me, I highlight it with the contrast and, the way a character feels or smells the world around him, but then contrasting that. If there's a great battle scene, well, it's a beautiful day in early March, and the bluest sky, is bathing the world in saffron, da 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 da. But then there's battles down below. This is not a very good way to describe it, but it's moving beyond the basics of gray and yellow, but using it, painting in a blue mood. I mean, I'm not the only person. I mean, Picasso had his blue period. Miles Davis had his work as well, all the greats. But it's a very interesting correlation. And I
Yeah,
should probably exploit it more.
did you always know that that was there and just not have a name for it, or were you unaware that it was something that you? And I say you have synesthesia, you don't really have it, you
Right.
experience it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, I never knew. I mean, and I started out writing poetry like most of us, and it's because it made sense to me.
Yeah.
And I saw these and felt these words and sensory items so strongly and across senses. But I just thought it was part of the creative process. I mean, when you're writing poetry at 9, you don't even know what the creative process is.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm writing poetry because I love it and I see these. And when I smell cinnamon, there's a golden ray of light. And when I, you know, hear Axis Bold as Love by Jimi Hendrix, everything's gone yellow. I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So
No, what I don't have that, but I do experience something called ASMR. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
yes,
Okay, and so for me, it's like Xanax. Like I will deliberately seek out sounds and they'll calm me down. I take headsets when I get on an airplane because I would rather have a root canal than fly. And the whole time we're there, I have to listen for bolts popping when we're in the plane. But I'll take headsets and listen to them. And my husband knows better than to touch me, ask me if I want a drink or anything. I just sit there because it's like I'm having a massage. I can feel it on the back of my neck. And it's just the strangest thing. And for the longest time, I thought everyone did. I didn't know.
right. Yeah, you don't know if you're not, you know, if you're in that world or of that world, you don't know the
It's just normal. But I would kill you if the cat was grooming and you made noise. Go away.
right,
Because for me, that was just heaven. So yeah, so when I became aware that it's a thing, I went looking for it and I discovered that, and like you said, it's not a disability, but your brain is definitely wired a little differently than other people. And
right.
so then there came a discussion one day about if you had to lose your sight or your hearing, which would it be? And I said I would much rather lose my sight, because if had to lose my hearing, I would have no way of sort of comforting myself in stressful situations. So
Wow.
yeah, it's very important. And I'm sure with you, it's very important, especially as a writer. It helps you out.
Yes. Yes.
So
And I have listened to some ASMR and I need to do it more. I did it Sunday nights or my stress nights, like everybody else I know. You know, the work week starting. So I've listened to some of those channels and I really enjoyed it.
yeah, and my husband does not have it, does not experience it. And if you don't, you don't. So actually those I have to put on headphones. Well, they're better experience with headphones anyway, but I have to put on headphones because they annoy him, because you might have soft whispering or something or little noises in the background. And he's going, what? What?
Right.
What?
Right. What the freak is that, man?
Yes. What is she saying? It doesn't matter.
Right.
Could
I
be
know
unintelligible.
it's amazing how we're all so different like that.
Yes. Yes. And that brings up a whole thing. I think that people are so busy putting labels on stuff. I think we're all on the spectrum somewhere. I don't think there's any such thing as normal. There's something that we all have, and we just think that's the way everyone is.
Right. Yes, we all have our own disabilities and we all have our own abilities. And yeah, people
Absolutely.
love to put a label, and it's, at the end of the day, pain's pain and joy's joy. And I sound like I'm preaching over here, but I'm with you is all I'm saying. I got it.
Well, choir here, so we're good. So you have other projects that you're working on, I assume. Can you tell us about any of that?
Yes. So I have a new book, and the first draft is done, which really isn't the first draft. It's like the first, I can say, put this thing down and pour me a cold drink. Thank God it's finished.
Okay.
And I've stepped away from it for about 4 months. So I'm going to go in this fall, give it another polish. As you know, as a writer, I mean, for me, all in or nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's such a, I work a full-time job and I have freelance work. So, when you're writing a book, it's like, I've got to dedicate this amount of time per week, and I'm very goal oriented. But it's called A Solid Man, and it's slated to come out early, probably Q2 next year.
Okay.
And it's written it's written in the Alexandria Rising third person element, but it's a more mature work. It's a little bit more of a morality tale. It has a subtext of a morality tale, but it's a thriller.
Okay. That sounds interesting. Sounds really good. But you'll have to let us know so we can have you on again and have you talk about that.
Yes. I'm very, my wife was reading it, and the joke was that Alexandria Rising, it was the alter ego of me when I was a 27-year-old reporter.
Okay.
Even though I wrote the book, in my late 30s. But what I've written now is a quote alter ego of me at 50.
Okay.
So, the whole world is changed, and I think it's more mature, but I think I would say it's the best thing I've written. So, and
Yeah,
then I write a comedy, but
yeah.
that's later.
And that's a thing too. Obviously, I mean, this is a thing for writers. When you put something out, then you think, oh, I wish I'd just had another pass at that, or and or somebody else will tell you something, and then you'll be rethinking everything, and you wish that you could take it back and publish it again. But it's the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and those
Right.
things get better and better and better. I was talking to somebody else about this. One of my favorite authors is Barbara Kingsolver, and I read her book about the little this little girl got out of her own town, and she was going across the country, and somebody gave her a baby, and it turned out to be a Navajo baby, and she didn't know much about this child, but she was trying to protect her. She didn't know why she'd been given this child at a truck stop. So there's these 3 books about it. Well, I read the last book first, then I went looking for the rest of the story, and I read them in reverse order, and it was a little bit disturbing at first, because I thought, wow, she's getting worse as a writer.
Right. Oh, wow.
They were still good books,
Right.
but then I looked at the published dates, and then I went online to see like what's going on here, and what other books has she written, and I realized that the last book I read was actually the first one. So as a writer, that makes me feel better, because whatever I put out today is not my best work, but the next thing is coming. So
Yes, and I think it's
that's
that
what
way
you're
with
saying.
all art.
I think so. And it's not just the art, it's the living, it's being a human being and having a new experience. And
Yes.
that comes into your work too. So yeah, like you said, as we get older,
Right.
if only we knew those things before.
I know. Or if we knew them and listened to them.
Yeah. Oh well, but we knew everything then.
Right.
Yeah.
If I was
So
ever elected president, I would pass forth a few laws, and one would be to reteach Shakespeare to adults.
yes. Again, my husband was not a reader after about junior high school, and I won't recount the whole thing. I'll tell you another time, but we were watching a Shakespearean movie back in the day when you could rent them and you had them for a week, and he wasn't understanding the movie. And so then we stopped it, and I said, well, I don't want to watch it by myself. And he said, well, explain it to me. So we went through a little, and then I would explain it. And then we went through and I would explain it. And then he went back and said, I want to watch it again. And then before we turned it in, he watched it by himself again. And then after that, he became a big fan of Shakespeare. And I think from his perspective, he was one of 11 kids. No one was ever checking your homework or,
Right.
helping you with those kinds of things. I think he thought it was unattainable.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's sad.
it is.
He hits every human theme, and I mean, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
But I love the old languages, but no one talks in Elizabethan anymore. So
No.
I saw the new Macbeth, the Cohen, I believe Joel Cohen directed, and Denzel was in, and I thought it was excellent. And the fact that they kept the original language was amazing.
Yeah.
At the same token, I do believe it needs to be made more accessible because it's so good.
I really like when they take Shakespeare and modernize it and
Yes.
make it available to a young author or young readers or viewers. I really liked that.
I thought that was outstanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really was. I mean, and I remember some of my daughter's friends were telling me about this movie, and I said, "Do you know what it's based on?" And they didn't. So that's,
Wow.
and I don't know whether it was a good thing to tell them or not, because they kind of rolled their eyes, but maybe in the back of their heads they're like, oh well, that wasn't so hard to understand. You don't
That's
know what kind
right.
of effect it has. Yeah. So do you think that all of the work was one man, or do you think it was several people?
The great debate.
Yeah.
I think it was all one person. And I haven't gone over the manuscripts. I've read articles in The Guardian on it. This is a bad joke, but the research I've read, I think you can find points both ways. I want to believe, I guess it's like Santa Claus, I want to believe,
Yeah.
but I want to believe it was one person, and one person was that talented.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. And that might be a willful naivete, but I think you're diminishing who he is or was by saying, well, he really didn't do this, or someone helped him, and I'm like, come on, man. Let's give the guy his due. And I think you can find just as many arguments for him writing it as you can against it. And
Yeah.
whether that's running a computer system to pick up the cadences or a lost folio, whatever. But I think, and again, I want to believe that, we get geniuses now and then.
That's
We don't get a lot, but sometimes we get a Shakespeare or, a Duke Ellington. And, I think you just have a lot of jealous English majors out there.
okay. I hadn't thought of that. I'm in the same camp. I believe that it was one person. One of the reasons I believe that it was one person is it takes you a while to find your voice. And again, if you go back and you look at when something was written and then you go forward, you can see, I think, a progression.
Yes.
Um, so I think it was one person. I think it would have been very difficult to be that consistent across work if it was a whole troop of people writing it.
Right. No, that's a great point. And you see the same themes come up, but they're in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, yes, when you go from Hamlet to Lear to the Tempest, that's life.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point.
Well, and there was a whole renaissance going on at that time too. So the Queen was, funding things like that. So when that happens is when we start to get brilliant people. When somebody's trying to put food on the table, they don't have time for anything else.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, but when you get some patrons, it's amazing what you can do. So
Yes.
is there a question I have not asked that you wish that I had?
The elusive nature of pimento cheese is a discussion which we need to have more as a nation.
Okay.
No, no, you've been wonderful. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I had to throw in a pimento cheese there, though, You got to rep the pimento cheese.
I usually ask this question towards the end, and I have never had such a creative answer.
Well, thank you.
That's great. So that'll be my all-time favorite for a long time.
Hey,
So
hashtag wrap the pimento cheese.
there you go. Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure, and I hope
Oh,
to have you back.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. And for listeners, as always, I will put all the links to Mark's books and his adventures, and you can find out everything that you want to know about Mark in the links below. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.